My name is Dean Page, and I'm a certified life coach. I help my clients get perspective, reach their goals, and change their world. I've also had the opportunity to meet a lot of interesting people. People who have had unique careers, built up businesses, and triumphed through adversity. So one day it dawned on me, why not put the two together? Why not start a show where people can tell their stories of building success and rebuilding from adversity, with the intent purpose to encourage, inspire, and inform others who are working on their goals to fulfill their dreams. Now, if I only knew what to call it. Maybe I should make a list. Wait, that's it. The Dean's List. Kinda has a nice ring to it. So I hope you join my guests and I on this upcoming episode of The Dean's List. Have you ever had a dream that you work really hard on, but yet it seems like no matter what, you just don't quite make it? And then one day, looking back, you realize maybe you need to change your attitude a little bit. So you make the changes that you need, and you are seeing results. The only thing is you're no longer 20 or even 30. Does that mean it's too late? Yeah, I don't think so. And the next story shows that. It's my friend Justin Rando, who literally the night before had just done a segment on WWE Raw in New York. See, sometimes when you make changes, dreams still can come true. I ask that because sometimes people think that when they go to do something or go for their dreams or go for, they want to do a career, whether it's like something like pro wrestling or a job or going for sports or going for anything. And when the door doesn't open wide open right in the very beginning, they go, just give up. I think one of the things in talking with you, besides your work ethic, which we can get into at some point later, is that you're an example of you got to keep doing what you can do, be as prepared, continue on, and there is, I'm going to say hope. That's maybe not the best word, but
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
the thing is well, what again, to recap a little bit from what I was hearing, and again, I'm going to come from a little bit of a life coaching perspective. When you said you go to when you go to the shows and you don't know what's going to happen, and it could be this, it could be this, you may not be anything, you made this, and then you find out there. And then the idea of when I was thinking too of tying that in when you said Bobby Lashley was saying, "Hey, what do you want to do?" Well, you've got to have all that stuff ahead of time, all your options. Every bump you took, every time you trained, every time you did this, you were then able to say or do something rather than go, "Hey, Bobby, hang on a minute. Let me go learn a move and I'll come back."
Right.
At least that's how it sounds to me, that all that time that you were putting in may not have happened at that point, but it's certainly starting to happen now. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, no, because a lot of it has to do with another thing that I've learned in the last couple of years. Um, Perspective,
Hmm,
is everything. You can say, "Oh, they didn't use me for TV. Oh, they didn't put me in a match. They didn't put me in a match. They didn't. This is ridiculous. I've been 10 times. They didn't put me in a match." Da da da. Flip that a little bit and think about it this way. Good. Good. They didn't put you in. I say that now because I go, that gives me more time to train. That gives me more time to be prepared.
perfect.
That gives me more time to get. So then the next time I go to TV, I go, maybe they'll put me in a match today, right? No, they didn't. Good. Now I can go back, and now I have time. Now I have more time to train, more time to practice. So instead of saying like, "Oh, this sucks," they didn't give me, the opportunity. Maybe they're giving you the opportunity when you're ready for it,
Oh, that's
and
brilliant. I love that. That's a soundbite.
yeah. I mean, but that's
But
the
that's
thing is
true.
like,
No, that's why it's so good because I mean, plus you're in the environment, so you can learn and pick up stuff that you're not going to be
right,
by watching TV.
no, and then you can look at the guy that did get that instead of you, and you can say, "Well, I wouldn't do that."
Mhm.
well, that didn't work. I wouldn't do that. It's all about your perspective on things. And I think that it's like when you get older, you never want to think about like things your parents told you, but it really does come with the fact that when you get older and you've had all these experiences, you know, if they had put me in a match the first time I went to TV, I would have probably never been back. Or I might have been back because they like me, but they'd be like, we can't use him. He doesn't, that was, they would have looked at so many things wrong. And that's why I think when you put things into perspective on learning and growing and changing and being able to adapt and know that that was maybe for the better they didn't use me that day.
And you're still
Because,
progressing too. You're not just
right,
saying, oh, well, okay, I'm just going to pretend everything's wonderful. But you're like, okay, what can
well,
I learn from this opportunity? What can I do?
yeah, and I mean, and not every progression and every step you have is going to be a standing ovation and people patting you on the back. The progression can be small, and it's not just, hey, that was amazing, yeah, yeah, yeah. It doesn't always come like that.
Mhm.
You know, there's small steps, and it's kind of like I said to you the other night when we were kind of going over some stuff. I said, sometimes I have to stop and look over my shoulder and say what I've done, because you forget that 2 years ago I wasn't at WWE monthly, you know, without a contract. Like, I don't have a contract. That's fine. Maybe I wasn't ready for one, you know, maybe there's a different plan. And that comes into like now when I think about transitioning into a referee position. Maybe there's all these different things that you don't always know why it didn't happen. But then you're going to look one day and you're going to go, now it all makes sense.
But isn't that gonna? It makes sense too, like for the ref, which is funny because I was going to transition to that. Great, great job there. I love
Yeah,
it. Um,
yeah,
the all those experiences, aren't they going to help make you even that better of a ref?
yeah. Well, because like even with talking to the producers and things, is like that's what they like is their referees to be, former wrestlers, former indie guys.
You got
You
that
just have a
down.
better, yeah, you have a better, idea of like what you're doing or what you're supposed to be doing, or, it's easier for me to kind of look and say like, okay, so I kind of know where we're going with this. I kind of know what, so you're able to be out of the way. You're not going to get in the way of the match of two guys that are, putting on the show. So for me, it's kind of like, you know, now I look and I go, so at 42, I said this to you the other night too, is like, I need a job, like I need a career, I'm not, I mean, yeah, I could drive a truck and a fork truck for the next 20 years, but is it going to make me want to get out of bed in the morning? No, it's not. It's fine for now because, again, we talked about that. That is that job that I have now is the perfect job to get me to where I needed to be.
Hmm.
Like the job that I make my own hours, I can be there as much or as little as I need to be. Um, my boss is absolutely amazing. He's 100% for me. He's probably more wanting me to be a wrestler than I do. It's like I look at, I come into work sometimes in the morning. He's on the computer and he's looking at quizzes and he's like, stop. He's like, all right, ready? In 1996, what was the main event at the Survivor Series? And I'm like, so he's right there. Like
Yeah.
he wants to see that happen. So
Nice.
he's just as happy for me when I get these moments and these little nuggets that, you know, show progression, and like last night was another one. Last night was a great example. Like
Mhm.
last few times I've gone to TV, I don't think I did anything. I think it was kind of just hanging around and okay, eating a lot of food and catering and going home. And last night was one of those nights where I had time to talk with Steven Regal.
Wow.
Um,
Sweet.
I had yeah, I had time to talk to Kenny Doan
Hmm.
about reffing, and
Smart.
then I got to work with, you know, uh, Chico for one, and Sami Zayn and Drew McIntyre. So overall it was a win. It was like one of those nights just you went home and I was completely fulfilled. It was made me realize like this is why I'm doing everything that I'm doing is because I want to be there every day. You know,
Again, going back to it, can you imagine if you had stopped last month?
right?
So as far as the
Well,
progression,
they always say, and I love it because they always say like most people quit when they're this close because they just don't know
right? And
it.
yet,
You never know what's next.
it sounds like you have both because you're still pursuing your dream, but you're also starting to adjust into the ref. So,
Yep.
it's still, you can make progression, or I should say progression, you can make adjustments, but that doesn't mean you have to give up your dream. But, you also have the pragmatic part of it too, which is
No, but
good.
what I did was
Yeah.
I made myself more valuable.
There you go. Oh, I love it.
So
More
I kind of
options,
look at
right?
it. Well, I look at it as I could be less one dimensional and more three dimensional because now I can do these other things that make it like, oh, maybe we could use them for this, or maybe we could do this, or there's more of a value to. Well, if we give him a job, he can just wrestle. That's it. You know.
Hmm.
Well, they know I can talk. They know I can. Act. So now it's kind of like you have all these. You're juggling these three things that are kind of like, well, do this or do that, or do you want me to do that? And it was all the same thing is coming up with the ideas of when I first started thinking about the rep thing. I mean, it was something that I was really thinking like could be. I look at the reps on TV. They're my height, they're my size, and I'm like, let me talk to Mike about it. Talk to Mike, and
Mike
we
Hollow.
had a good, huh?
Mike Hollow.
Yeah, Mike Holland.
Yep.
Yep. And we had a good conversation about it. And of course, like he's the funny story about Mike is when I first got into wrestling, um, and I think it was like 2003, is when I decided I wanted to go to wrestling school, and I was at Westfield State College at the time, and I searched around, what's the best school to go to, and I went to Chaotic Wrestling, and Mike was the trainer there,
Hmm.
and I was there for like 6 months, I think, and then Dr. Tom came and did a camp, and I met another wrestler um, by the name Antonio Thomas,
Yeah.
and he was like, "Why don't you come train in Chicopee with Kevin Landry?" And Chicopee's like only like 20 minutes from Westfield, so I could be there. When I was at Chaotic though, I was driving Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday from Westfield to Chaotic, which is in North Andover, Massachusetts. So I was driving there 4 days a week,
Wow.
2 hour drive
Again,
there,
dedication, dedication.
2 hour drive back. Right. And then after 6 months, it kind of sounded like a good idea of like, well, yeah, I can go practice at Kevin's school because it's, close and I'll be able to do it probably more. Um, the structure wasn't there like it was with Mike. Um, it just wasn't the same.
Hmm.
Kevin's a great trainer.
Yeah.
I would say that I've had two trainers who were, you know, in the early stages that were really good. Um, I like Kevin because he was a little bit rougher. He would say like, "That looked like shit. Do it again." You know, so he was honest with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Um, whereas he would say that, Mike would say, "I didn't like that. This is why.
Hmm.
This is what you need to fix. Not this is shit. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again."
What am I fixing?
Well, if you're just doing it over and over
Yeah. What am I
and
fixing?
you're not fixing it,
Yeah.
you're just making you're making the same mistake over and over because you're not, doing it.
Right. Because
So
if you knew
with
you were
Mike,
doing it wrong, you wouldn't be doing it. you know.
Mike's the type that'll pull it apart and say, "This is what you're doing wrong." And it could be the littlest things. It could be, the way your hand is turned to in a, in a lock, a hold that you're putting on, or how you would. And so there's all these different things that Michael pull apart, and he'll go back and say, "Now do it again."
You have the dream, desire, and talent. Everyone knows you have the work ethic. You have the best gyms, personal trainers, and workout programs. What about overcoming the challenges or getting your head in the game? I can help with that. Visit teampagelifecoach.com. I help clients get perspective, reach their goals, and change their world. Maybe you could be next.
I went and actually he invited me to watch a little bit of one of the training sessions he did, and
Yeah.
it was great. And again, I have a martial arts background, so I used to teach martial arts. I didn't take the body slams, thank you, and I'm certainly not getting in the ring with Bobby. However,
Yeah.
at least I got it from the teaching and training perspective. But one
Right.
of the things I noticed is they were doing in the beginning just some basic warm-up stuff.
Yeah, like front
And
rolls, back rolls.
just but he was critiquing the moves as they were just doing the warm-ups, and not in a picky
Right.
way, but in like, oh no, the same thing. Your hand position, your footwork, your this. And
Yeah.
I thought that's brilliant, because if you have all the technique in the small things, you don't have to worry about having it in the big things.
Right.
You know.
Well, I mean, and that's a good point too. Is like, and again, going back to my start at 23 years old, I wanted to be on TV.
Sure.
I wanted to be famous. I wanted to be a wrestler. I didn't care at what cost, however I get there, let's do it. That's what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I had years and years and years of screw up, So in 2007, I left Massachusetts and moved to Florida. And I moved down there and I was like, oh, I'm not really wrestling, So I wasn't really wrestling. Maybe a year into, so now I'm probably out of the ring 3 years. And I just happened to see, and I lived in Tampa, so I happened to see in the paper that WWE's developmental is FCW. It used to be Ohio Valley,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
So I said, oh, that's cool. They're in Florida, man. I was like, I wonder if I should, find some place to train or something like that. So that's probably like, now I'm gonna say what, like 26. So I'm like, maybe I should get back into it and really, focus. And it still turned out to be one of those things where, like, I found a training facility. It was an old storage unit, had a ring. However, I did meet one of my best friends there. And I had the opportunity to train with Prince Iakea for a short time.
Yep.
So Prince Iakea was WCW television champion.
Yep.
And so I'm at the ring, and we're kind of just doing some stuff. So the first couple guys I meet are the British Lions, which were Steven Taylor and Chris Gray. They had 18 years old, 19 years old. They were signed by WWE to FCW from England. So they moved over here from England and started training. Then they were let go. So when they were let go, they obviously were still into the wrestling business. They were still wanted to, fresh off of a, release. So they found this place to train, and I was lucky enough to get to kind of work with those guys, And one day, the three or four of us show up to practice, and we see Prince Iakea, and it was him and his son Nick. And I trained with those guys, I think, a few months before the warehouse, the storage unit, like, shut down and nobody was there anymore. Now it's like, okay, where do we go?
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of like fell off a little bit after that again with wrestling, and it was a good few years where I wasn't doing anything, and I ended up becoming friends with I'm trying to think of how I met her, but I ended up becoming friends with Luscious Latasha, who wrestles here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Latoya, and her name, her. So Toya, she's from Massachusetts. I want to say I met her through Steven Taylor. And she was best friends and living with Brittany Savage, who was she was been on TV a couple times for WWE
Mhm.
as an extra. She'd had matches, and back then they did matches more. We're talking like 2000, I want to say 10, something like that. And maybe I should kind of do some stuff with you guys. So I started hanging out with the girls and going to the shows, and I was kind of like, maybe I should try to just do something, a little bit, but no practice. I wasn't practicing. I hadn't wrestled in
Mm.
years. But in my head, I'm going like, oh, I can do this, right?
I got this.
Uh, yeah. So I mean, I did a few matches. I was in pretty good shape still, and because I had gone to school to be a personal trainer after the fact when I was down in Florida, so I had been doing personal training as well. So I was still in good shape, but like my wrestling, there was nothing there. Like I didn't understand anything.
Mm.
Now when I look back, I thought I understood stuff, but I didn't understand anything that I was doing. So fast forward a little bit, like I moved back here. Um, there was really nothing going on up here at the time when I moved back, wrestling wise. I didn't really have any connections anymore. I hadn't been here in, you know, probably like 8 years, 9 years. Um, so I really didn't think about it. I really wasn't thinking too much about wrestling. I was just like, oh, well, I've had my fun. At the time, I'm thinking like, oh, I got to live my dream. Like I had done shows with, like X Pac and Jimmy Hart, so I got to meet them. Um, you know, but like I didn't really like, you know, understand what was about to happen later. Um, so I kind of was like, okay, well, I'm gonna kind of get a job or whatever. And I talk about my video, the one that you watched, uh, the Standing 8 production. A friend of mine, John Spohr, he had a wrestling ring over in Glens Falls. So when I first had gotten back, this is years now later. We're talking. I'm just setting up for the video. Um, I went to John a few years ago, or a few months ago, and I said I want to put a video together. I want it to be like this? And he said I'm gonna write it. I'll do the voiceover. This is what I want for footage. You can cut it and edit, put my voiceover, put it to music. This is kind of how I want it. John was like, absolutely, man, we'll do this. So when you watch my video, I talk about like just blaming everybody else, and everything. And it's not just in wrestling. I'm not going to say it's just wrestling that I blamed everybody else for, wrestling. No, I mean, it's talking about blaming everybody else, about every situation as being somebody else's fault. Pointing the finger at like, why I had to move back from Florida, why I wasn't wrestling, why I didn't finish at Westfield State 10 years or so ago, why I didn't do this, why I'm back in Pittsfield now is somebody else's fault. Like everything else would be somebody else's fault. Not looking at and understanding what the reasons were that maybe this is the path. Because I'll say right now, all the wrong roads you take can lead you to the right path and to the right destination. So just because you took wrong roads, wrong turns, doesn't mean that you're not going to get to where you were supposed to be.
Right.
It just may take a little bit more time.
Right. Sometimes we win, sometimes we learn.
Right. And that's the other thing. If you take away learning from all the mistakes that you made in the past and the people that you blamed and the people that you hurt and the different things that you did along the way, if you can finally sit down one day and say, you know what? I said this to you the other day because I love saying it, is it wasn't Florida that sucked. It wasn't my job that sucked. It wasn't my girlfriend that sucked. It wasn't my parents that sucked. It wasn't Pittsfield that sucked. It wasn't the coaches that sucked. I sucked. When you can figure that out, you're kind of like, yeah, I'll say it, the common denominator.
Yeah, and
You
that
know,
was the phrase I actually wrote down. That
I was the common denominator in everything sucking. I was the one that was right there in the middle of it. So with that being said, now it's like, um, I'm working. I'm with my girlfriend now, Tammy, and this is like 2020. Um, I hadn't wrestled in, now it's been another 5 years. Well, we had the pandemic too, so that
That
didn't
didn't
help.
help.
But I,
Yeah.
but I wasn't wrestling before that anyway. Um, so I'm working at B&G Restaurant Supply, and Tammy works there, and I'm like, I'm happy. Like we have a good thing going. Job's fun. I like being on the road. Kind of reminds me of wrestling a little bit. I'm
Yeah.
driving all over New England.
Yeah.
Um, Boss is great. Which is funny because he gets even better when I start wrestling. You realize how much greater he was than he was even when I was there prior to that. But we're like, we're driving one day, and one of the guys that I work with said to me, "There's a wrestling show coming to Pittsfield." He's like, "Are you doing it? Didn't you used to do that?" Yeah, yeah, I used to do that. Oh, you should do it. I ain't doing it. Now, mind you, though, the pandemic, I got in the best shape of my entire life because I was working a security job, which they laid me off from during the pandemic. So I was collecting unemployment, and I was working out twice a day.
Again, an example of a rough scenario where a lot of people did not have that. And I'm not taking
Right.
shots at anybody, but I saw statistics and stuff on how, well, again, you took the time and you used the opportunity, as bad as that the scenario was, to get better, not to get worse, which again, I hit that just because there's times where our situations just stink. I'm not going to, you know, sugarcoat it. And sometimes during those times, you can still do stuff that'll get you to the next level that might not have been there. But anyways, continue on. I just,
Yeah. Oh, well, and that was the thing is I kind of looked at it as like, well, I'm getting this money for unemployment.
yep.
So I bought gym equipment. I bought stuff because obviously the gyms weren't open, so I had to
Hmm.
do something. But I started doing, my own twice a day. I had a stepper, I had an elliptical, I had a bench. Excuse me, I had some dumbbells. I had like an ab lounge type cruncher thing, one of those. You know, I don't even know the name of those, the specific name for those, and I'm a freaking personal trainer. But anyway, um, so I put together this routine that I was doing, and it was like, man, in those 2 years, I completely changed. Like, I was bigger,
Hmm.
I was leaner, and I just looked totally better than I even did in my 20s when I was dressed. So anyway, this guy says to me like, "Well, why don't you do that? You should do this show." I said, I'm not gonna do this show. But of course, when you've wrestled, like that never goes away. It's always in your head a little bit. And so when
Yeah.
somebody else puts it in your head again,
Right.
now you start kind of playing the
Well,
tape
that
and going
would be
like,
good. Oh,
no, maybe. Then you start thinking like, well, how did I end? What was my last match?
wow.
What did I look
Yeah.
like? Where was it? How was it? How are the fans? Maybe I should do one more and really make it. Never
Nice.
wrestled in my town. I've never wrestled in Pittsfield, so maybe I should think about it. It's only one match. So
Just one.
I, yeah, so I talked to Luscious Latasha about it, and she knew the promoter
Mhm.
and another good friend of mine at the time, Shooter Storm. And Shooter, it's funny because he lived in Florida. I met him in Florida. He moved back to Messina, New York, right around the same time I moved to Massachusetts. We always stayed in touch. Shooter and I had an odd kind of relationship. Everybody hated Shooter, right? But he was like the one kind of guy that like him and I could just go back and forth, and we could make fun of each other. We could do whatever. We just had it was an odd relationship, but it was fun.
Yeah.
It was really fun. He was disliked by a lot of people because they took him the wrong way. I think, a lot of times, and so Shooter and I always ran stuff by Shooter. I was when it came to wrestling, I was run stuff by. So I messaged him. I said, "Hey, shoot!" I said, "This Shane Alden guy." I said, "Do you know him?" "Yeah, yeah, yeah." You remember when I came to stay with you a couple of years ago, and he was doing extra work for WWE for a couple shows up here in this area.
Mhm.
So remember when I came to stay with you? He's like, Shane Alden's the guy that I stayed with the last night before I came to stay with you. I said, oh, okay, all right. So Shane Alden does extra work, so he's done extra. So you know this guy? Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's like, well, let me talk to him. Toya says, let me talk to him. So I emailed Shane. He said, Shane, I'm from Pittsfield, Mass. See you running the show here. Haven't wrestled in a long time. Really like to do something small because it's my hometown. People are kind of asking me about it. And I said, so, could you put me on, and I'll do something, Battle Royal, whatever it'll
Mhm.
be. He messaged me back. He says, well, Sean Shooter talked to me, and so did Luscious. She said something about you. So, yeah, I mean, we can use you. I said, so what do you want? We'll do something. No, you're going to have a match.
Nice.
Wait a minute. I'm going to have a match? I haven't wrestled
Yeah.
in
I'm sorry, what?
forever. He's like, so what
But
do you
you
mean?
got in shape though, too.
I have nowhere to train. I have nowhere to practice. I haven't been in a ring.
You're right. Yeah.
He says, no. So I meet Shane. He comes to Pittsfield, and I meet with him, and we talk. I mean, this guy's another guy, just the nicest guy ever, right? You might hear me say that a lot because the guys that I don't make many friends in the wrestling business. I will tell you that. So the ones that you do make, they have to be pretty solid.
Mhm.
I can count on one hand pretty much how many people from the wrestling business that, I'm friends with and that I trust. Um, but so Shane puts me on. I'm like, all right, cool. So I get to this show and I find out I'm wrestling this guy, Owen Brody, my size. You know, get to, yeah, let's talk about this. I was thinking, oh yeah, I was thinking about this. I said, you're thinking the same thing I was just about to say,
Oh,
and we
nice.
almost we were almost on the same page, like
Oh,
from
that's
the
a good
beginning.
sign.
So he puts us right up before intermission, and we go out and do like 7 minutes. I think the match is like 7 minutes. I win. Um, his manager tried to cheat a couple times through the match, grabbed my leg, this that. Finally, at the end, he goes to grab my leg. I reverse. He ends up grabbing Owen's leg. Owen falls. Um, he turns his back. He's cheering because he thinks that he grabbed my leg,
Yeah.
but he really grabbed Owen's leg. And Owen stumbles down towards me. I boot him. DDT. 1, 2, 3. Crowd goes crazy, and because a lot of them were there for me.
Mhm.
Manager realizes like what he did. So I leave. I'm walking down the aisle. Manager gets in the ring with his cane. As Owen's going to get up, he's got the cane raised up big, like he's going to take Owen right out. And I look around. No, I slide in the ring, grab the cane,
Great
spin the
story.
manager around, pop him. Crowd goes crazy. Now they got the payoff. He got his
Yeah.
comeuppance, and I got him for cheating, trying to putting my foot off the rope when I was on a 2 count or whatever. Whatever he did in that match.
Yeah.
And Owen and I shake hands. Boom.
Big pop.
Big pop. Walk out. And that was a small decision to do that show, but it changed the next 3 years course of my life for the next 3 years. I walked out of there like, holy crap, that was my best. That was my favorite match. I was in my hometown. I felt the crowd. Owen was a great guy to work with. The manager that he had, he was fantastic and hit everything that he needed to hit. He was hated. They didn't like him. Um, so I was like in the locker room, and Shane says to me, "So you want to do the next show?" Yep.
You have the dream, desire, and talent. Everyone knows you have the work ethic. You have the best gyms, personal trainers, and workout programs. What about overcoming the challenges, setbacks, or injuries that are a risk to your incredible potential? I can help you with that. Visit DeanPageLifeCoach.com. I help clients get perspective, reach their goals, and change their world. Maybe you could be next.